November 20th, 1995, Buckingham Palace, 4:17 p.m. The sound of Princess Diana's voice echoing through the corridors of Buckingham Palace was so loud that staff members 3 floors away stopped their work to listen in shock. "I won't be silenced," Diana's scream reverberated off the ancient walls as she faced Queen Elizabeth II in the most explosive confrontation in modern royal history. At 34, Diana had finally reached her breaking point with the woman who had systematically tried to destroy her life, and she was no longer willing to show deference, respect, or fear to the monarch who had made her existence a living hell. What had triggered this nuclear meltdown wasn't just another royal protocol dispute, it was the Queen's final attempt to strip Diana of her voice, her children, and her very identity as a member of the royal family. But the most shocking part wasn't Diana's explosive fury. It was discovering what the Queen had threatened, that finally made the people's princess declare war on the crown itself. The final straw, November 1995, the BBC Panorama aftermath. Diana's explosive confrontation with the Queen was triggered by Elizabeth's reaction to Diana's devastating BBC Panorama interview with Martin Bashir, which had aired just a week earlier and sent shockwaves through the monarchy. In the interview, Diana had delivered bombshell after bombshell. "There were 3 of us in this marriage." Her admission of adultery with James Hewitt, her criticism of Charles's fitness to be king, and most devastatingly, her suggestion that she would never be queen, but could be queen of people's hearts. The Queen's response was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours of the broadcast, Diana received a formal summons to Buckingham Palace for what was euphemistically called a family discussion, but was actually a royal tribunal designed to destroy her completely. "Your recent television appearance was an act of treachery against the crown," Sir Robert Fellows informed Diana when she arrived at the palace. "Her Majesty wishes to discuss the consequences of your actions." Diana knew she was walking into a trap, but she was no longer the frightened young bride who could be intimidated by royal protocol. The woman who entered the Queen's private study that afternoon was a battle-hardened veteran of royal warfare, ready for the fight of her life. Don't miss this shocking revelation. What the Queen demanded from Diana. The ultimatum. November 20th, 1995, 4 p.m., Elizabeth's devastating demands. When Diana entered the Queen's private study, she found Elizabeth surrounded by legal documents, palace officials, and an atmosphere of cold determination that made clear this wasn't a discussion but a sentencing. "Diana," the Queen began without any pretense of pleasantries, "your behavior has become intolerable to this family and damaging to the monarchy. We are here to discuss the terms of your future." "My future," Diana replied, though she suspected what was coming. The Queen then laid out demands so harsh they took Diana's breath away. Complete public silence. Diana would be forbidden from giving any interviews, making public statements, or communicating with the media without palace approval. Any violation would result in immediate legal action. Restricted access to children. William and Harry would remain in royal custody with Diana relegated to supervised visitation rights. All contact would be monitored and could be terminated if Diana continued her disruptive behavior. Financial control. Diana's divorce settlement would be reduced to basic subsistence levels, with all major purchases requiring palace approval. Her home's security and lifestyle would be subject to royal oversight. Social isolation. Diana would be banned from attending any royal events, stripped of her patronages, and forbidden from representing the monarchy in any capacity. Title removal. Most humiliatingly, Diana would lose her Royal Highness status and be reduced to simply Diana, Princess of Wales, a title she could use but would carry no real authority. "These terms are non-negotiable," Elizabeth concluded with icy finality. "You will accept them gracefully, or you will face consequences that will destroy any remaining connection to your children and this family." You won't believe how Diana responded to these threats. The explosion. Diana's response to the Queen's ultimatum was so explosive that it fundamentally changed the balance of power between them forever. For a moment, Diana sat in complete silence, processing the magnitude of what Elizabeth was trying to do. Then something inside her snapped with such force that even she was surprised by the fury that erupted. "You think you can threaten my children to control me?" Diana's voice rose dangerously. You think you can strip away my voice, my independence, my very identity because I told the truth. Diana, you will lower your voice, the Queen began. No. Diana's scream was so loud it could be heard throughout the palace. I will not lower my voice. I will not be silenced. I will not accept your threats. Diana stood up so violently that her chair toppled backward, the crash echoing through the room as she began the most devastating verbal assault ever delivered to a reigning monarch. The personal attacks. You want to talk about damage to the monarchy? Let's talk about how you destroyed my marriage by allowing Charles to conduct his affair openly, while forcing me to smile and pretend everything was perfect. You want to discuss treachery? How about the treachery of a mother-in-law who watched her son emotionally abuse his wife and did nothing to stop it because it was convenient for your precious institution? The institution critique. This family is built on lies, cover-ups, and the destruction of anyone who threatens your control. You've turned the monarchy into a prison where honesty is treason and speaking truth is rebellion. You call my interview damaging? The damage was done when you allowed a loveless marriage to continue for 15 years, while the world watched me slowly dying inside. The children weapon. And now you want to use my children as weapons against me. William and Harry are my sons, not your pawns in some sick power game. They love me, and they know the truth about their father and this family. The Queen sat in stunned silence as Diana unleashed years of suppressed rage with nuclear force. Don't miss this devastating moment. Diana's ultimate declaration of war. The declaration of war. Diana's confrontation with the Queen reached its climax when she delivered a declaration so bold and threatening that it left Elizabeth genuinely afraid for the first time in her reign. You want to destroy me, Diana screamed, her voice hoarse but unbroken. Then understand what happens when you try to destroy someone who has nothing left to lose. Diana, you are hysterical. I am furious, and I have every right to be furious at a system that used me, abused me, and now wants to discard me like yesterday's newspaper. Diana then delivered the threats that would haunt the Queen for years. The media war. You think one television interview was damaging. I can do 10 more, 20 more. I can tell the world everything about Charles and Camilla's affair, about your role in covering it up, about how this family treats anyone who doesn't conform to your medieval protocols. The international strategy. I have friends in media all over the world, American television, European newspapers, international magazines. They all want my story, and I will give it to them in excruciating detail. The constitutional threat. You want to take my children. I'll tell William and Harry exactly what kind of family they're inheriting. I'll make sure they understand that being royal means choosing between being human and being your puppets. The nuclear option. And if you try to silence me completely, I'll write a book. I'll document every conversation, every threat, every cruel manipulation this family has used against me. I'll make sure the world knows exactly what the House of Windsor does to inconvenient women. The Queen's face had gone completely pale as she realized Diana was no longer making empty threats, but promising to wage total war against the monarchy itself. You're not ready for what happened when Diana delivered her final blow. The ultimate humiliation. Diana's final attack on the Queen was so personal and devastating that it broke through Elizabeth's legendary composure and revealed the frightened woman beneath the crown. You know what the real tragedy is? Diana said with sudden, dangerous calm. The British people love me more than they love you. They see me as everything you're not. Young, beautiful, compassionate, real. That popularity is temporary. The Queen began weakly. Is it? Because when I die, and eventually I will, I'll be remembered as the people's princess who tried to modernize this ancient, cruel institution. And you'll be remembered as the cold queen who destroyed the most beloved member of your own family. Diana moved closer to Elizabeth, towering over the smaller, older woman with an authority that reversed their traditional power dynamic. You call me a threat to the monarchy. I am the monarchy's future. Without me, you're just a collection of old buildings, dusty traditions, and irrelevant ceremonies that the modern world has outgrown. The personal destruction. And personally, you failed as a mother-in-law. You failed as a grandmother to my children, and you failed as a woman who should have protected another woman from the cruelty of the men in your family. The historical judgment. History will judge both of us, and it will conclude that you had a chance to embrace change, compassion, and progress through me, and you chose instead to cling to power and destroy anyone who threatened your control. The final insult. So go ahead, try to silence me, try to take my children, try to strip away my titles. But remember this, I will never bow to you again. I will never show you deference again, and I will never ever be afraid of you again. Diana then did something that no one had ever done in the Queen's presence. She turned her back on the monarch and walked toward the door without being dismissed. "Where are you going?" Elizabeth called out, her voice shaking. Diana paused at the door and delivered her final, devastating line. "I'm going to be the queen of people's hearts, something you'll never understand." Don't miss this shocking aftermath. How the palace tried to contain the damage control. The aftermath of Diana's explosive confrontation with the Queen required the most intensive crisis management operation in royal history, as palace officials scrambled to contain the fallout from a screaming match that had been heard throughout Buckingham Palace. The immediate response. Within minutes of Diana's departure, palace security was reviewing surveillance footage and interviewing staff members to assess how much of the confrontation had been witnessed or overheard. The Queen herself was in a state of shock, reportedly requiring medical attention for elevated blood pressure and stress-related symptoms after being subjected to the most vicious personal attack of her reign. The staff management. Every palace employee who had been present during Diana's visit was required to sign additional non-disclosure agreements with severe financial penalties for any leaks about the royal family's private disputes. Several staff members who had been particularly shaken by Diana's screaming were quietly transferred to other positions to minimize the number of potential witnesses to the Queen's humiliation. The family crisis. Emergency meetings were held with senior royals to discuss how to respond to Diana's threats and whether the monarchy could survive a sustained media campaign by someone with such intimate knowledge of family secrets. Prince Philip advocated for immediate retaliation. "The girl has declared war on the crown itself. We must destroy her before she destroys us." But Charles, who had witnessed Diana's capacity for devastating revenge firsthand, counseled caution. "If we push her too hard, she'll carry out every threat she made. We need to find a way to neutralize her without triggering nuclear warfare." You won't believe how this confrontation changed everything. The transformation. Diana's screaming match with the Queen marked the moment when she finally achieved complete psychological independence from the royal family and their power to intimidate or control her. The liberation. Rather than feeling ashamed of her explosion, Diana felt liberated by it. For the first time in her royal life, she had spoken her complete truth to the most powerful person in her world, without fear or deference. "I'm not sorry I screamed at her," Diana told her friend Rosa Monckton afterward. "She needed to hear what I really think of her and this institution. I should have done it years ago." The strategic victory. Diana's threats had been so credible and comprehensive that the Queen was forced to abandon her demands for Diana's complete submission and negotiate a more balanced divorce settlement. The palace realized that an enraged Diana, with nothing left to lose, was far more dangerous than a controlled Diana with limited freedom, so they chose compromise over confrontation. The public vindication. When news of the Queen's harsh demands eventually leaked to the press, public opinion rallied around Diana even more strongly, with many people viewing her as a victim of royal bullying who had finally found the courage to fight back. The image of Diana standing up to the Queen resonated with anyone who had ever felt powerless against institutional authority, making her more popular than ever. The aftermath. The aftermath. Tolos mathev doen comlo. The confrontation between Diana and the Queen permanently altered the dynamic between them and established Diana as an equal power center within the royal system, rather than a subordinate family member. The divorce negotiations. Diana's threats proved so effective that her eventual divorce settlement was far more generous than the Queen had originally intended, reflecting the palace's recognition that Diana now held significant leverage over the monarchy's reputation. The media strategy. Diana's promise to wage war through international media became a constant threat that influenced royal family behavior for years, with palace officials always considering what Diana might say before making decisions about family matters. The legacy. Most importantly, Diana had proven that the Queen's authority was not absolute and could be challenged successfully by someone with sufficient courage and public support. Her willingness to scream at the monarch established a precedent that would influence how future generations of royals approached their relationships with the crown. The truth revealed. Diana's screaming match with Queen Elizabeth revealed that beneath her carefully cultivated image as the people's princess lay a woman capable of devastating rage when her children and freedom were threatened. Her willingness to declare war on the monarchy itself proved that Diana had evolved from victim to equal combatant in the royal family's internal power struggles. Most importantly, the confrontation showed that even queens could be intimidated by someone with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The shy kindergarten teacher who had curtsied to Elizabeth at her engagement announcement was gone, replaced by a woman who could look a monarch in the eye and refuse to be silenced. Some revolutions are fought with armies, others are fought with truth, courage, and the willingness to scream no when powerful people demand submission. Diana's revolution began with a scream that echoed through Buckingham Palace and ended with the Queen learning that even royal authority has limits when confronted with maternal fury and righteous rage. The woman who declared "I won't be silenced" kept that promise for the rest of her life, proving that sometimes the most powerful response to institutional oppression is simply refusing to be quiet.